All right, everybody. Today we're going to talk about intro to biochemistry. We're talking about biochemistry, which basically means we're going to start talking about atoms and molecules because those are the basis of cells, and that's our next topic. So, in order to really understand cells, we have to talk about um, atoms and molecules and how those things are built together and are built up into making the parts of cells like organelles and stuff like that. So, first, let's go with some basic definitions. We can write these down. We're going to start with matter. Anything that takes up space and has volume, I will add. Um, Essentially, everything that you can see or touch or feel, or even things you can't really see, or like gases are even matter, right? So you probably remember learning states of matter at some point, but like this is matter too. So um, how how do you know what's a simple experiment you could do to show that even gas takes up space, right? The air around us takes up space. Can you think of anything? All right, I'll tell you. You could blow up a balloon, right? You could think of like a car tire or anything like that. That shows that gas does take up space. There, just because you can't see it doesn't mean there aren't physical particles that are pieces of matter. Okay, so let's go on to atom. Atom is the basic unit of matter. So all matter is made up of atoms. Um, so we're going to get more into atoms later, but atoms are, things like hydrogen, carbon, and nitrogen and oxygen. Those are all different atoms, um, and they make up matter. Everything basically in the universe is made of atoms. Um, that's why you never trust an atom because it makes up everything. Anyway, then a nucleus. I just wanted to point this out here because the nucleus is at the center of an atom. It contains the protons and neutrons of an atom. However, um, I don't want you to confuse it with this kind of nucleus. Okay, so here we have this is an atom, and here we have a cell. Okay, and so this nucleus right here, okay, this guy has protons and neutrons. This might be, let's say, a carbon atom. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of carbon atoms throughout this whole cell. Okay, um, so all of the different parts of the cell, like the cell membrane and the nucleus. So this right here, sorry, this is really what I meant to say. The nucleus here of the cell. This carries DNA. Okay, so this nucleus and this nucleus, those are different things. Um, so the nucleus of an atom is different than the nucleus of a cell. Okay, the cell is way, way bigger. The cell is made of atoms. The cell is made of millions of atoms, okay, put together. So an atom is like the basic unit of matter, and then we put a bunch of atoms together and we will eventually get a cell. There's some steps in between, but an atom is much smaller than a cell. So the nucleus of an atom is different than the nucleus of a cell, right? This is the nucleus of a cell. Okay, so make sure you write this down somehow, okay? That these are not the same kind of nucleus, but it is the same word. Okay, let's go on to more stuff about atoms, okay? So some just basic things. This is the structure, okay? And we did just see this in the last slide too, but you have the nucleus is the protons and the neutrons in the middle, and then kind of circling around the outside, doing their own thing, are electrons, okay? And we should know that protons have a positive charge, electrons have a negative charge, and then neutrons have no charge. They are neutral. And so just some things that we should remember, these elements are neutral, meaning they have no charge. So that means the number of protons. So if something has, let's say, 12 protons, it should also have 12 electrons, and that will make it a neutral atom. Okay. We can or atoms can lose or gain electrons, and that will make something called an ion, but we won't talk about that right now. Okay, that's a charged atom, a charged particle. Okay, cool. So write these guys down. I will have you watch this video. You can't click on that right now, but that I will make a link for you later to watch just how big is an atom, or how small is an atom, and then we're going to go through the scale of the universe slider thing, which is pretty cool. Okay, so let's continue on. Here, this is the periodic table. Okay, so this is all of the atoms and the elements, we call them, that we know of, and I just want to highlight a few that like we are going to talk about a lot when we start to talk about cells and living things. Let me actually start over here with carbon. Carbon is the most common thing in living things. We have actually a combination of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Those are some of the really important main elements that we have. But there's more. Another important one is nitrogen. Another one is phosphorus. And there are plenty more, but they're kind of in smaller amounts. So those are some of the ones that we have in large amounts. Okay. And, we can add sulfur in there too. There's some of that in a little bit. But if you put these together, you can make an acronym that makes this kind of easy to remember. SPONGE. Okay. Sulfur, phosphorus, oxygen, nitrogen, carbon, hydrogen. And again, there are more of these in our bodies, but they are just in smaller amounts. Okay. And we don't need to name them all, right? Cool. So I'm going to reference these atoms, these elements a lot. So I want you to think of, those are the things on the periodic table. That's where they are. That's where they come from. Okay. And in general, we should know how to read some of these things. And we won't get into too much detail here, but this is the atomic number, A, here. And so for sulfur, for example, that is 16. And what the atomic number is, and we should write these things down, atomic number is the number of protons. Okay, so that's the one above the symbol here. And so that is always the number of protons in an atom. And this does not change. Okay, if you change the number of protons, then you get a different atom entirely. So that's unlike the number of electrons or the number of neutrons. If you change the number of neutrons or the number of electrons, you still have sulfur. For example, if you had 33 neutrons, sorry, I haven't gotten into that. But if you had like an extra electron or one too few electron, you would still have sulfur. So if I go back to the periodic table, you'll see here that, for example, this might be kind of small, but oxygen has 8 protons. If you were to give it another one, this isn't exactly how it works, but if it had another proton, then you would actually now be making fluorine, and you would no longer have oxygen. Okay. All right. So the next part of this, B, is the atomic mass. Okay. So the atomic mass is the number of protons plus the number of neutrons. Okay. So I might ask you on a quiz question, how do you find out the number of neutrons that this thing has? Well, we're going to just round to the nearest full number. And so let's just say if we have, if the atomic mass is the protons and neutrons put together, then we can take this number and subtract this number here, the atomic number, and we get the number of neutrons. So let me write that here. Number of neutrons equals the atomic mass. What is happening? Mass minus the atomic number. Okay, that's how we find the number of neutrons in an atom, right? Okay, but I'm not going to spend too much time on that. We could do some practice problems, but I'm not going to worry about that. Let me see. Okay, I think that is good for today. Next time we will talk about molecules and how to put atoms together. But for now, I just want to start with the basics. Okay, thank you.